Hi there, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Rabid Dog House. Here in the house, we like to talk about horror gems that audiences may have forgotten all about. I'm your host, Justin Steele. Tonight, we are going to be talking about 2005's Cursed, written by Kevin Williamson and directed by Wes Craven. Cursed follows a brother and sister as they are attacked by a werewolf and have to deal with the repercussions and discoveries of what it means to be a werewolf. The movie stars Christina Ricci, Joshua Jackson, Jesse Eisenberg, Maya and Judy Greer. And tonight we have a special guest. Zena Dixon will be joining us here in the house. All right, and thanks for joining me today, Zena. I'm excited to have you here in the Rabid Dog's house. Today we are going to be talking about Cursed, and as you know, it is a Wes Craven, Kevin Williamson collaboration, and they definitely had the high points of the late 90s, early 2000s. And for me, coming into horror, just a little bit of background knowledge for you and me, I had two older brothers growing up, and I definitely was a product of 80s slashers. So when the original Scream came out, I was a big fan of that sort of collaboration and the way everything came together. But for you personally, how did horror come into your life?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so
Absolutely.
excited. Well, my mom is a long-time horror fan. She always loved horror movies, and pretty much whatever my mom would watch, I would watch. I was
Nice.
just attached to her hip. And sure, there were some things that I probably should have never watched as a kid, But I mean, I feel like I came out fine,
For
you know.
sure. Me too. Me too.
It's
My
just
brothers were babysitters, so I probably shouldn't have been watching half the stuff I saw.
right, but it's just like I just feel like it kind of just made us who we are in a good way.
Absolutely, absolutely. It toughened us up too. It showed us, the woman could survive and not to be a creepo monster and etc. And I love it. Horror is a big part of my life. So you were a fan of Cursed then, because Cursed, it was a product of coming out in 2000, supposed to come out in 2003, and then didn't get released to 2005 because of dozens and dozens of rewrites. But overall, I don't think it's the best movie ever, and I don't think it's the best of their collaboration, but I did enjoy the movie. I thought it was some fun parts in there.
You know what? I agree with you. And as you said, just jumping back on that, is that I do not feel like it is the best movie. However, it's one of those movies where it's fun.
It's fun.
Sometimes you watch a movie and it's not supposed to be like, oh, so detailed and in depth that way. It's just like just enjoy it. It's a werewolf
Yes.
movie. You're gonna see some bodies. Just have fun with it. You have some typical characters, you have the fun characters, and everything like that. I don't know. I personally, when I first watched it, this was 2005, so I think I was like in high school, about to graduate, I believe, and watched it, kind of went in blind. I remember seeing the posters for it. What was the tagline? Like, what doesn't kill you make you stronger, or stranger makes you stranger.
Stranger.
And I kind of thought the posters were pretty cool, but I don't really remember watching the trailers like that, even if it came on TV. But watching it, I fell in love with it because it was, again, it's a fun movie, and it's the perfect kind of movie to watch by yourself as well as to watch with a group of friends.
I agree completely. I want to talk about later werewolf movies in general, but for me, I'm a big Christina Ricci fan. I grew up with her as Wednesday Addams on The Addams Family, but everything else she's been in since then, even Casper, I was a big fan of her performance in that. So seeing her in this, and then also knowing, the sort of creators of Scream, I'm like, well, this is a perfect storm for horror fans. And I think you're absolutely right that, yes, I definitely enjoy movies with a more highbrow sensibility. I also enjoy very low budget movies that are like terrible but fun to watch. And I feel like Curse lands right in that middle area of being stylish but also fun, silly fun. It's not supposed to take itself so seriously, but for most of the movie, it works logically.
Okay, so I kind of wanted to dive into some werewolf movies to chat with you about. So
Nice.
I've noticed that a lot of werewolf movies, or just like that sort of like subgenre, it kind of just gets swept underneath the rug. Like not a lot of people really talk about it a lot. So I don't know about you, but I've seen my share of okay ones and not so great ones. But then there's some good ones in there, and I kind of just wanted to see, like, do you have any favorites or ones that just kind of stand out for you?
Well, one thing I like about Cursed, as opposed to most werewolf movies, not all, is that it brings sort of werewolves out of the shadows. You have movies like American Werewolf in London or Paris, where it does kind of show the transformation and you're kind of like learning the werewolf stuff through somebody who's been bitten. And I definitely am a fan of that. I also, though, very much like The Howling, where they're sort of in the shadows and coming out. Again, though, Dee Wallace is my favorite actress. Top five favorite actresses. I say that and then I'll choose three others. But Dee Wallace, Cujo's my favorite movie. So anything she's in, I always fall apart on Dee Wallace. Sorry, to focus back on, but The Howling, I really liked that sort of feeling. For me, though, personally, I think a big problem for anybody past 1980, whatever, the Thriller music video with Michael Jackson, I think that was my first experience seeing a werewolf. Even though it ends up becoming a video about zombies, it was the beginning of that music video that really kind of scared me, where I'm watching it, and it's the girl kind of running through the forest. It's a remake of, I think I was a teenage werewolf. But that was the first time I had it. And I do think that werewolves kind of get pushed to the side. They don't have the sort of sexy quality that a vampire can have in terms of falling for the girl or this or that, even though I guess the Twilight movies did kind of try and fuse that with the werewolf choice or the vampire choice. But in general, yeah, I think werewolves are kind of terrifying. I think in the past, it's probably a lot to do with special effects and what they felt they could accomplish or not. But what are some of your favorite werewolf movies?
Well, first, let me just say you were absolutely right with the Thriller movie.
Okay.
The Thriller music video, and how it started off as a werewolf movie. Well, werewolf kind of. I don't know. I never really thought about it that way. So I don't know. That's just something random.
That was definitely just my first. It just popped in my head. That was the earliest experience that I had, and I remember that always scaring the heck out of me. I love 80s slashers. I enjoy a good vampire movie, Fright Night, Lost Boys, all those. But werewolves, I don't know. They get lost a lot of the time, and I think it was genius that for Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven to kind of be like, okay, maybe they did it consciously or not, but it's something that wasn't expected of them. And they came up with a fresh idea and a fresh take on it. Sort of that blend of, we have somebody transforming, we have a brother and sister transforming into werewolves, but at the same time, the werewolf's also in the shadows. Like, who is it? There's a mystery element. And I thought that was a really fun way to do it, where you kind of get the best of both worlds.
And that is true. That's something I did want to mention with this movie. I love the fact that it is kind of like a whodunit.
Yes.
It's like a werewolf movie, but then you're trying to figure out who. And I'm not gonna lie, like, not giving away a spoiler, the ending surprised me, in a good way. Because usually, sometimes when you're watching a movie, you're able to, I know who it is, and
Yeah.
get away. So, but I didn't answer your question. So with like my favorite types of werewolf movies, so kind of like you, I really love 80s horror movies. Like, they're just so amazing to me. They can do no wrong. I don't care what anyone says. Yeah. So because of that, I do have a tendency of kind of liking things that are cheesy. So like, I remember like maybe like 2008, there was this movie that came out on the Sci-Fi Channel. It's basically this movie called Never Cry Werewolf. And it's kind of like Fright Night, except, because she believes that her next door neighbor, that he's a werewolf, and she's spying on him the way Charlie, is spying on the guy next door and everything.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's so cheesy though. It's so like, hey, wait a minute, that's baloney. You know what I mean? It's one of those things.
I love cheesy though too. I get it.
I think that you would appreciate this movie. I think you would appreciate it because it's fun.
I like the title of it too. Never Cry Werewolf. That's great.
Right?
That's great.
That's what attracted me to it. Matter of fact, I'm probably gonna watch it again tonight because. But yeah, that's one of my favorite movies because it's fun. It's kind of cheesy and stuff. Another one. I'm a fan of like the Howling series, but my favorite one is Part 4. The original Nightmare from 88, and it's basically about the woman who's a writer, and she goes to the woods with her husband, and her husband is such a sleazy guy. Like, the second he gets the chance to cheat, he cheats, but he's gonna die. So it's just like, it was just like really fun because she starts seeing things and everything like that, and the music is pretty cool too. In the 80s, late 80s, how they really love that electric guitar.
Absolutely. I kind of love it too.
Right? Another one I recently watched again from the 90s called Bad Moon. Bad Moon is a really great one. Right now, I believe it's streaming on Tubi. So that's more of a serious tone. And I personally still feel like it kind of holds up with some of the effects and everything. And I guess something more modern, I would say. well, not too modern, but Dog Soldiers is another one that's, I feel like a lot of people, when they do think about werewolf movies, they think about that one. Neil
I haven't
Marshall's.
seen that one. I haven't seen that one.
That
But
one's great.
you mentioned though in the 90s, I kind of forget another one that gets overlooked too was Michelle Pfeiffer and Jack Nicholson in Wolf.
Yes.
And you know, that one got criticized at the time because the first half of the movie sort of like a potential metaphor, and then a lot of critics didn't like that it became like a literal werewolf movie. And that was such a time in the early 90s where like horror was kind of looked down upon again. And I love that it's the whole transformation and the whole literal werewolf ending. And again, it's like another, not just a horror movie, but another werewolf movie that kind of gets, okay, now that we've actually seen the literal werewolf, we're going to just put it to the side. I think some of the most fun moments in horror, like when you watch Cursed, are in the werewolf movies. Like you're able to do some manipulations that you might not be able to do otherwise, because it's like having the slasher mask, but it's a wolf. You know, you don't know who that is per se, so it does work for the whole mystery element of what Cursed comes about with. Another thing, though, that I definitely enjoyed about the movie Cursed, like I said, I loved Christina Ricci in it. I thought her character had this whole metaphor for like the many faces that we wear, where she's dealing with the scorned lovers of her current boyfriend, but she's also playing sister and mother to Jesse Eisenberg's character. Also, I thought Michael Rosenbaum was a lot of fun. You know, he played Lex Luthor on Smallville, and if you watch him in interviews, he's got this fun quality about him. Jesse Eisenberg was great. You could definitely see the potential of where he was going to go. The next big movie for him, I think, was Zombieland, and then he did Social Network and all that. But Maya was nominated for an MTV Movie Award for her performance. And in terms of her performance, I have to say I think it was deserved mainly because I think it's really hard to pull off the character that she did where she is condescending, snobbish, but then in her moment she is genuinely scared and vulnerable, and she elicits empathy from the viewer. And I think that's a really hard thing to do with a character that you kind of don't like. And then all of a sudden you're like, get out of that elevator,
Right.
climb up that hatch, you know? And I really liked the performances in the movie. I thought they were good.
Something with Maya's character that, you know, made me laugh. So in the beginning, when her and Shannon's character, they went to the gypsy to get their, you know, reading.
Right.
Maya ends up just ditching her friend, like, or Jenny. It's like, what happened? I would never
Right.
talk to her again. If someone, I mean, if my friend did that to me, it's just like, we're not talking anymore. She just left. Like, she got so upset, you know, and then the next thing, her friend is dead, you know. But like you said, though, I agree with you. Jenny was like, her character is such a snob, you know, she's terrible. But at the same time, it's kind of like, you do feel sorry for her. When she was literally like, I was like, my heart was pounding. I remember the first time when I first watched it, and she kind of jumped up on the side of the Hummer.
Yes.
That was so smart, because at this point, what do you do?
Right.
You
And then
cannot
she just took off running, you know, when it came to the part where she's like, I got to do it. I got to run, you know. She was smart. Again, she wasn't the best person, but when it came to like saving her life, she did what she had to do, and I thought it was fun. And before I forget, you brought up, you know, her dynamic with Shannon Elizabeth. I want to, before I forget, you know, there's the theatrical cut of this and the unrated cut of this. And a lot of people didn't see in the theatrical cut, you know, they kind of leave this moment out. And I probably think that's for the best, even though I did enjoy the unrated version, because Shannon Elizabeth's character, the way she dies in the unrated version, you know, she gets flung through a window and half her body is gone, and she's still kind of crawling and alive. And it took me out enough that it's not like, oh, I'm shocked, like, oh my God, it's like, wait, she'd be dead. And it's enough that it takes me out of it that I'm like, all right, I'll keep watching though, because I want to see what happens. But
I mean, I agree with you. I do know, even with the theatrical version with Jenny, going back to her character again, they completely just black that part out. Like, you don't see what happened to her, which is kind of like a bummer, because I like it. I know it's just so exaggerated. It's just so extra what they're doing, but it is one of those movies where it's just like, okay, if you're going to watch it, like at this point, it's like, you kind of want to watch it for that reason, if that makes sense. You know, like sometimes you just kind of need those movies like that. I mean, I'm not always the hugest fan of, you know, buckets and buckets of blood, especially if it's unnecessary, but I feel like this kind of added like a layer to it.
Sure. Overall, absolutely. I think especially if there's something innate about a werewolf movie that you're gonna be expecting to see some blood. Whereas a slasher movie, I feel like it can be hit or miss, but in a werewolf type of movie, I think you're right. I think like your expectation is to see all that blood and gore, and it's just an innate quality about it.
Right.
In finishing up, though, I do think too that you're right that we just kind of they do just black that part out, and it's part of the whole issue. I think too with all the rewrites and stuff. As various movies like some people had problems with Scream 3. I bring that up because of Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven, and even Scream 2 because things were released online. They had to go back in and rewrite a lot of stuff. The first time I watched them through, I wasn't really aware of that, and I thought it was like planned all along. And I'm like, oh, this makes sense. Yeah, definitely. So sometimes I think changing things in, going in and rearranging can make sense and actually work better for the film. Although Stu Macher is one of my favorite characters, and he was supposed to be in the Scream 3, and I kind of wish that that had happened because I love Matthew Lillard. And I was missing that, and I definitely would have liked to have seen that version. I think it all worked out well, and it became Sydney's story, which is what it always was. And then, but a movie like Cursed, I think that they just arranged it one too many times. Because it was supposed to start with the big party, and the end was supposed to be the whole Judy Greer final countdown scene at the like Wax Museum Club. Mm-hmm. And instead, they tacked on that ending, which I think works. It's a little jarring, but overall, I think it works.
I agree with you. When I first watched the movie, I had no idea all of that happened to it, So I remember thinking to myself, like, man, I wonder why they don't elaborate on this scene a little bit more. They were like little things here and there where it's just like, oh, I'd love to know more about that. But then years later, because I recently found out that there was like a lot of retakes and all the issues behind it, even with some of the actors saying that it was just like a mess, which is so unfortunate because it's just like, it's one of those movies for me, I feel is kind of a little comfort movie,
Sure, so, I definitely know, yes.
I love watching those. So it's just kind of weird to even hear when people tell me how much they disliked it,
Yeah, really, because it did have such like a negative response, but comfort movies definitely are the best. Each one brings something different, a different element, but those are the best. And I think that Cursed, while I feel like it will always have had more potential, I think as is definitely one of those movies. I could put it in and I'm going to be happy. There's going to be a fun, zany almost energy to it. What Kevin Williamson is definitely known for is his black humor and how like even the sort of Jesse Eisenberg with, I forget his full name. It's like Milo, blah, 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 something. The whole gay context of like, the whole time Milo's character is like taunting Jesse Eisenberg's, but then Jesse Eisenberg kind of comes back. And I thought that was played really well. I thought it was fun. And, it definitely, when you have a tense moment, it releases that tension to be like, oh, these guys, it's funny. Right. And that's the kind of thing I like.
One of those scenes, like, going back to those two characters, Milo and Jesse's character, I love the scene when they're like wrestling.
Yes.
One of the best things about being a fairy is that you can fly, and then they're playing that rock music, just like click, click, whatever, it's like all this stuff that's just happening, and you just can't help but just love it, and no matter how many times I've seen this movie, it's like I have to sometimes just stop everything what I'm doing and I have to watch it, and it's like I'm really sitting there watching it like it's my first time ever seeing this movie. But I can help myself.
I agree completely, actually. Like that's actually a really good thing. There's definitely movies like where if I'm writing or something, I have on in the background and I could kind of not. But anytime I put this movie on, and it's not something I revisit often, but I'd say every other year or so, I kind of put in. I definitely have to stop what I'm doing and focus on it. And I think that bodes well for it as a movie that it's that interesting. I definitely like that. But speaking, of Wes Craven, it's really sad that we've lost him and stuff, and we're not going to see, further Screams. But at the time, he definitely wasn't pleased with how Cursed came out.
Right.
And I could see that. He started thinking it was going to be one movie. I guess they were going to do a difference because the werewolves in this movie, I suppose one of my criticisms, I think it looks fine, but you can definitely tell that it's a CGI wolf.
Right.
And they originally had a different guy doing it, and he got fired, and it was like an Academy Award-winning guy. And so I can definitely understand why Wes Craven wasn't as happy with this movie. But in the end, I think he should be proud of it. I think, because of who he is, no matter what, even his best movies, worst movies, even his worst movies are still good. And I think that I wish at some point he could have been proud of Cursed because I think it was a good idea and a good movie, and it had a lot of potential, and it met it about 80%. I'd give it like a B if I were grading it, like a B minus. You know, it's interesting ideas and smart and
Mhm.
stylish. It's not the best, but it has a lot of good moments to it.
You know what? I agree with you. I would give it a B minus as well because it really is. It's not like the best movie, but if you want to be entertained, if you want to have fun, and you're a fan of werewolf movies,
Yeah,
definitely enjoy this. And then on
a
top of that,
popcorn
Christina,
movie.
yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it's one of those movies again where it's like you can watch alone, you can watch in a group. And I personally think that it is. There's so many hilarious parts that's in it.
Yeah.
Like one of the scenes that I actually didn't want to talk about is the ending, and that's with Joni. Like Joni throughout the whole movie, she was so annoying.
Yes.
She's just like a secret hater. And when you think about it, she's literally running around town, killing all these girls for
Right.
food. Like, miss, I'm not the guy. But it was just like I just thought it was so funny. And every once in a while, it's like I have to watch that scene, when Ellie's saying all these horrible things about her, and then
Yeah, to get her to like come out. Yes, yes, I forgot about that because I rewatched this on Wednesday, I think it was, and I was like, I forgot all about that moment. And she's like, "Well, it's a werewolf. She has really bad skin, and bony ass." And I'm like, but the way that they filmed it too, where the werewolf just kind of at that, I laughed so hard. I did laugh so hard, and I forgot about it, and it really tickled me. I thought it was fabulous. Absolutely, absolutely. I'm so glad you remembered that because I forgot about that scene to bring up on this. And yes, I think that's the part those are the parts that save this movie, because I do think you have a character like Maya. She brings in the fright. Christina Ricci's learning things, and then you've got the humor between the guys, Jesse Eisenberg, and Milo. I'm sorry, I can't think of his last name. It's the
so
like.
long.
But
What?
then, yes, Judy Greer. It's this perfect combination of elements. Yes, it may not have been executed as well as Scream or any of their other collaborations, but it's a lot better than people give it credit for.
I agree. I agree. And like seriously, I'm just happy that you enjoy it as much as I do because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
haven't spoke to anyone. Most people who I know, they don't care for it and like they're ready to like bash it.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot more people out there that do like it. I don't always go by things like this, but I think Rotten Tomatoes gave it like a really low percentage.
Mhm.
Something else gave it a low percentage. But then if you look at like Google users, 85% liked it. And again, I'm always sort of hesitant with that, but I think that bodes well for it that like audiences do enjoy it. Yes, they're not coming away being like, "Oh, that was the movie of pretentious stuff," but they
Right?
definitely, they enjoy it for what it is. And I think like us as reviewers of movies, I think a really important thing is sometimes you have to judge the movie about what audience is this movie for. It's not just my personal taste. It's not just, oh, was the cinematography this or that. I do try to think in the back of my mind, okay, this might not be my kind of movie, but the person that's going to see this movie, are they going to enjoy this movie? And
Right.
I think this movie is for those people that want to have comfort food, movies, hanging out with friends, have
Mhm.
a good laugh, a jump or two, and I don't know. I think that speaks well for it.
I agree with you. It's like I didn't get a chance to see it in theaters, and I would absolutely love to see it in theaters.
I didn't either, and I bet it would have been a great experience.
I know it.
Now, as we start to wrap things up, Xena and I obviously very much enjoyed Cursed. It's not our favorite movie of all time, but it's definitely one we're happy to see when it gets put into the Blu-ray player or DVD player or whatever. And I think it's fun. It's tongue-in-cheek humor. The movie definitely plays like there's a band playing Little Red Riding Hood. There's funny moments. There's some terror and there's some thrills. It's definitely a good thrill, feel-good movie. But Xena, as we start to lead out, we did lose Wes Craven. And, some of my personal favorite Wes Craven movies, I'll always love Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean, that's going to always be kind of probably my first thought. Um, I love, love, love his People Under the Stairs. That's
Oh,
definitely
yeah.
also one of my favorites. And then obviously Scream. But I was wondering, what are some of your favorite Wes Craven movies?
Oh man. I'm a huge fan of made for TV movies. So it's just something
Okay. I think I know where you're going, and I'm excited.
It's just like one of those movies, you know, where it's like, I remember, like, again, like my mom is like a huge horror fan. So sometimes we would just go to Best Buy and she would just buy a whole bunch of DVDs. And sometimes we would just go based on the cover. Sometimes it's just like, hey, you know, I used to really love this movie. I think you'll love it. So, I mean, my mom's collection is crazy, better than mine. Anyway, but one that comes to mind is Summer of Fear.
Yes, I knew you were going to say that. I'm so excited. Zena, I've never seen it. And I love Lois Duncan. I love Wes Craven. I ordered it. I'm waiting for it to come, actually. I just ordered it about a week ago. I'm so excited that you brought it up because, well, that's Linda Blair too, isn't it?
Linda Blair.
Yes. I'm sorry. You were talking and I jumped in because I'm so excited. I love Lois Duncan. But yes, so it's good. So you like.
I love it. It's one of my favorites. And God, I wish I could watch it with you for like you're watching.
I know that feeling. I know that feeling.
It's such a good movie. And all right, the reason why there's just everything in it, you know. First off, Linda Blair, she's so cute in this movie. You know, she pretty much plays like this. She's probably like in her late teens, early 20s, and you know, she's a girl who has pretty much everything. Like her parents have like a really good job. They're pretty much well off. They live in a gorgeous house. She has her own horse. She's dating this guy who's gorgeous. Everything is just going right for her, you know. And then I'll leave it there because I want you to just enjoy yourself.
I'm excited. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Zena. I'm really glad we got to do this. And thank you all for watching another episode of the Rabid Dog House. What are some of your favorite werewolf movies? Are you a fan of Cursed? And of all the Wes Craven, Kevin Williamson collaborations, which one is your favorite? This is your host, Justin Steele. You can find me over at Wicked Horror or on 411 Pop Culture or on Twitter at Wicked Horror Justin. And this is the Zena Dixon. You can also find her on Wicked Horror, Dread Central, or at realqueenofhorror.com. Thanks for joining me, Zena. It was great to finally put a name to a face.
Thank you so much, Justin.
And I hope we can do this soon. And thanks everybody for watching. Have a good one.